Hello. Oh wow. Is that too loud? Should I take it further away from my face? There, maybe that's. It's going to change. I'm going to get my sweet spot, and I'm going to change it up. Hello, everyone. Welcome to. Thank you for having me. That's what I meant to say. Welcome to my talk. This is. I'm going to talk to you about creating a culture of accessibility. First of all, I'm glad to see that I've got today's date correct. That's always a thing. I'm Martin. I work for Sage. I don't really know what I am. I think I'm a lead accessibility specialist. I think that's what I do. I've been at Sage Sage are a kind of a financial software provider company, and they have lots and lots of products. But yeah, I sort of look after accessibility. They've kind of left that in my hands. So I've been there for about 4-ish years. I've got a little team around me that kind of, I take all the credit for everything they do. And it's all good work. So I should probably this is my opportunity to readdress that balance. But yeah, so I kind of let other people make me look good. We do all sorts of cool accessibility stuff with many, many products. We do auditing, we do general advice, we do all sorts. We do cultural stuff, which is probably what we're going to talk about today. A little spoiler. But yeah, Sage is a big company, like squillions of products. There's a lot going on there. There are a few big ones, but there are many little ones, and they pop up all the time. So yeah, that's kind of who I am and where I come from. So yeah, I'll cover three things today. I'll cover why a culture of accessibility is important. It's probably self-evident, but it's important, and a couple of things that you might kind of glean from that. I'll tell you what I've done at Sage, so you can all either avoid the things which sound horrible or feel free to copy all the things that sound good. And finally, I'll talk about maybe just 5 little tips about what you might do, how you might behave. It sounds a little bit kind of preachy, but you'll see what I mean when we get there. I should also apologise in advance for my accent. I live in Newcastle. I'm from Glasgow. It's all kind of messy. Manchester's a lovely place, and I'm very glad to be here. But I'm aware that none of you probably speak like me. Even if you were from where I'm from, you probably don't speak like me. So if I am going too fast, or if I say something that doesn't make any sense, if I use words that you've never heard before, please just shout at me or throw something at me. That might be the bit, something soft, preferably. But please do that. And I'll also try and get a copy of these slides to Lee, so he can ping them out to you afterwards. So don't feel you have to be scribbling everything down frantically. You'll get it afterwards. Anyway, why is accessibility, creating a culture of accessibility important? So the first thing, and probably the biggest thing, is that accessibility is not a checkpoint. So it's one of those things that should be woven through the fabric of what you're doing right from the very start, right at the very beginning of discovery, right through the design process, to the kind of build and go live, and then all the kind of many iterations of that. So it's something that really should be in everything. It's not a one and done, and it should be as early as possible, and it should be very often, little and often, essentially. Then there's no horrible surprises when someone turns up, they're like, right, this is all ready to send to development, and then they realise that actually, no, there are some fundamental flaws. So if you've come to get an accessibility checkpoint or review at that point, it's probably too late. In a lot of cases, and again, I don't know what kind of products you might be working on, but sometimes it can happen way too late, and that happens in the QA process, and the quality assurance tester starts finding things, and that gets pushed back to dev, and it gets pushed back to design, and it all gets very expensive. Everyone gets very, very frustrated and demotivated. So yeah, little and often, all the way through, and don't kind of treat it as a checkpoint. And that can be difficult because you are probably going to have lots of mini checkpoints as you're learning your way through accessibility. One of those things, again, Sage has got millions of products, it seems. New ones pop up all the time. And then, so you end up having lots of the same conversations over and over again as people are kind of learning the ropes, working out what they've been doing wrong all these years. And you're kind of trying to kind of direct things in the right way, in a very practical way as well, to kind of satisfy project people and budgets and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, do treat accessibility as, if you want to treat it as a checkpoint, treat it as lots of teeny weeny checkpoints. Accessibility is not a checklist either. I mean, it is a checklist. There is something called the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, and that's kind of a checklist of sorts. It's probably not the best of checklists. I think going back to the sustainability guidelines, it's difficult to read. It's difficult to get your head around some of the things. Lots of it, there's lots of room for debate. And I know that that's kind of something that people are looking at, and it's going to be easier to understand in the next one. But yeah, that's sort of where you kind of, that's probably a good place to start, but nothing more than that. Accessible isn't WCAG. Accessible is, I guess accessible is about people. It's not about a checklist. So keeping on checking with users, making sure that you're doing the right thing, you're heading in the right direction, you're informing your designs in the right way is the way to do it. You're probably not going to get to the very top of the, is that Mount Olympus, I think? Is that from Hercules, maybe? I don't know. My Disney trivia should probably be better if I'm using screen grabs from it. But yeah, so you've got kind of, WCAG is kind of the baseline, and then you kind of look to kind of make things for people on top of that. You might not ever get to it. You're probably not going to ever get to 100% accessible. By the time you get to that kind of area, you kind of fix something here and then something else kind of breaks as a result. So it's, but what you're looking to do is to get as high up that little mountain as possible. But yeah, it's about human feedback, making sure you're building for people, not satisfying a checklist. And that kind of only comes again with a collective understanding that it is about that. Accessibility is hard, and that's another reason to have some kind of community around the whole thing. It depends on where you are. I mean, again, talking from my perspective as an accessibility specialist, I get lots of pushback, lots of kind of, like, well, that's going to be difficult to do. We've been doing this all these years. Maybe we should continue to do it. Why would we change? Our users aren't disabled, all that kind of stuff that you hear. And then you kind of, but really it's about resilience and pushing through, making sure that people understand that actually the reason why none of your users are disabled is because nobody can use your stuff. So it's all those difficult conversations, lots of difficult conversations. And that's from my perspective, I guess, from somebody who's designing, developing, researching, and bringing feedback and bringing kind of that thing to product or stakeholders, explaining why we have to do things in an accessible way. That probably gets a little bit harder still because you're not the specialist, and also you probably don't want to get involved in all those really tough conversations and things. So it is a very difficult thing to do because those conversations are going to happen, and you are going to get pushback, and you are going to have lots of little fights in the nicest possible way with people to get things done the right way. But yeah, having a support community, having other people who know exactly where you're coming from is important, I think. Accessibility is exciting though. I think on top of all of that all said, it's a really exciting thing. It's about doing the right thing, and people like doing the right thing. It's about making sure that kind of people, you're sharing wins with people because you do pass those barriers, you do get past that pushback, you do convince people, and it's a really satisfying thing. One of the most satisfying things is when you get people that pop up that might be championing accessibility all by themselves, when you realise that somebody's really been pushing it. And yeah, it's a good thing to nurture that, to harness that enthusiasm. So what I've done at Sage is probably is this interesting? Let's see. You be the judge. So probably an interesting one here. Probably not my favourite one, but I thought I'll start out with that because probably you'll forget about this by that point. It's to make friends in high places. It all sounds a bit icky. But lots of organisations are hierarchical, and these people are fewer, but they're often very difficult to convince. But when you do convince someone here, or if you're lucky enough to find someone in a position of kind of clout or power in that kind of way that does believe in accessibility and doing things in the right way, then that's something important. And you can actually use that to kind of create a bit of a domino effect with other people in a similar position. So yeah, do make those friends in high places, project people, directors, executives, whoever you can get convinced or get on your side on that front, that's a good thing to do, but it's a hard thing to do. What I prefer to do is to focus on the people that actually do stuff, actually make things happen, instead of just kind of orchestration or whatever it might be, because these are the people with the real power. I think, especially collectively, there's more people on the kind of on the front lines, if you like, from that are more in touch with the user. I think when you get higher up, you kind of you're further back. There's more politics. There's more all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, focusing on the people that actually build stuff. That'll be possibly you, possibly your colleagues, whether you're designers, developers, quality assurance testers, whatever it might be that your role is, and whatever else your colleagues are up to. These are the people to really engage with. Collective power is a thing, I think, in critical mass. And to clear Sinead's point earlier, I think there's a chain there, I think, and this is a lovely quote from Mike Monteiro, who you've probably heard about. He did a talk called How Designers Destroyed the World, and he said, every time you make a conscious choice, rather than just letting things happen or accepting what is handed to you by others, you are fulfilling your responsibility. And I think, yeah, I mean, for me, that kind of covers sustainability, it covers accessibility, and I don't think either of those things was the point he was making, Mike was making, but I think it's definitely, yeah, it can be applied to a lot of things. And do bear that in mind. There is kind of power in what you do, even if you might not feel it all the time. You should. Another thing that I do, or I have tried to do, is to work accessibility into every design huddle. So design huddles happen, critiques, whatever you might call them, that's a thing. And I guess we all kind of get involved in those things in some capacity. So whether you're coming in as a kind of a job's worth like me, telling people like, actually, maybe we should think about this, or whether you're already in those places and you start thinking, just asking questions. You don't have to know the answers, but just ask the questions. Have you thought about this from a keyboard user's point of view? What are the focus states going to be? How is the order going to work? How about a screen reader user? How does that work? How are these pieces of content going to be communicated? Just questions, and you might not know the answer. The designer that's presenting their work might not know the answer, but it's probably going to spark something off. And the more those questions are asked, the more or the less you'll need to ask them, I think, is a thing. I don't know if there's a few of my colleagues in the room here, and I've been banging this drum for a long time, and I find that I'd have to attend fewer of these huddles more and more or less and less, because it's happening. People are asking the questions. People know stuff, and other people can help out. It's a thing. So yeah, do work that in there. What that does as well is it also means that going back to the idea about picking things up in the QA phase of the development life cycle, that's quite expensive. So what you want to do is to make sure that by the time it gets there, it's fine. Otherwise, you might end up with something like this. And it's gone right out of my head. I think it was Stephen Faulkner that wrote this article here on the WebAIM blog. It's a good article. And this is a lipstick. This is a pig. And he's about to have some lipstick applied. I tell you what, here's the definition of putting lipstick on a pig, which is probably going to be much more politically correct than what I would come up with. So lipstick on a pig, according to Wikipedia, so it must be right, means making superficial or cosmetic changes to a product in a futile effort to disguise its fundamental failings. So, was it? There you go, Jared. It was, you're right. There you go. I'm giving credit where it's not due. But both very good people, so and worth listening to. So yeah, the lipstick on a pig thing is definitely applicable. The pig being the design, the lipstick being the developer with this Aria lipstick, trying to make the best of a difficult situation. So yeah, thinking about design, getting design in an accessible state before it goes there means that there's very little development work needs to be done, or very little lipstick needs to be applied, if any. Leave the pig alone. Leave that poor pig alone. Poor pig. Another thing I've been up to, I've been encouraging collaboration between design and build, talking about that lipstick on a pig. I think this is something that lots of questions will come from a developer that a designer might not think about. They're going to be building this thing, and this happened last week. It was somebody had a developer came to me with this thing, and had the designer thought about that, then the issue wouldn't be there. So we had to apply a little bit of makeup. It was, it happens. It's a practical thing. But yeah, had that conversation happened between the developer and the designer earlier on in the process, then it would have been much better. The situation wouldn't have happened. So yeah, even if the developers, I mean, there's the idea of the three amigos thing where you have different disciplines talking about a piece of work, whatever it might be. Getting that development input nice and early is vital, I think. This is something I've done. I think this has been really effective. We get a lot of people along to a weekly drop-in clinic, surgery, whatever you want to call them, every week at 1 o'clock on a Wednesday. I even did it. I arrived in Manchester yesterday at 12 o'clock, and I went to find a quiet spot so I could do this because one of the other accessibility specialists that would have deputised was on holiday. So I found the busiest cafe in Manchester city centre to hold the clinic. I think it went okay. I'm still not sure, but I think it went okay. But yeah, we have this every week where people come along. They get about 10 minutes or so to ask a question, and we go over, hopefully answer the question. Maybe it's a bit of steer. Maybe it's some user feedback they've had. How do we fix this now? What we're going to do? But yeah, those kind of regular check-ins are good. Another thing with these is to do, again, do whatever you can to make these things happen as well. So if you're going to be putting something like this on, again, you might not have the answers. It might just be an open discussion, or a whinging session. I mean, a lot of these tend to turn into little grumbles. Somebody says, "I found this website the other day. I couldn't believe this," and you kind of have just a collective moan about it. It's quite cathartic, I think. But yeah, do something like this every week. Make sure you do it. If you don't have any questions, make sure you've got some kind of backup. You can talk about something like error message patterns, notifications, whatever it might be. I tend to fill things in by talking a little bit about HTML or whatever it might be, just the basics, to kind of remind developers that HTML is important, and to give designers who might not know anything about HTML a little bit of reassurance that actually it's not that scary a place to go, the world of HTML and code and markup. But yeah, this has been really successful. We get lots of people turning up with a coffee. This is all remote, by the way. We do this it's a dial-in Teams meeting. But we get lots of people just dialing up, coming in with a cup of coffee just to see, whoops. Are we going to come back on? Yeah, there we go. And this is a thing, technical glitches are my... and they follow me around. So this was about screen timeouts, and I'm glad that came back up. But yeah, so yeah, we do this every week, and it's good fun as much as anything else, and a little bit cathartic. We've got things like asynchronous chat channels, so we might have Slack or Teams chats, whatever it might be, just a way to kind of ask questions, post something that you've come across that was horrendous, whatever it might be. If you can't wait till next Wednesday, then come along to one of these things and ask your question there. If we can't address the question there and then, what we'll tend to do is say, let's organise half an hour or something at some point during the week where we can give it a proper look over. 10 minutes isn't necessarily enough to cover every issue. But yeah, we also have a monthly accessibility presentation or workshop. This is something we do. I think this is something I kind of inherited when I started at Sage. It was called the Accessibility Guild. So we kind of continued with that. And we just, every month, it's someone will talk. Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's one of my team, sometimes it's someone from, I prefer the stuff from the community. That's much more interesting to me rather than just being told stuff by somebody. It's more like, well, this is something I've learned. This is something really that's been of great value to our users. Whatever it might be that someone wants to talk about, then yeah, they can do that. I think the next one's going to be about what's it going to be about? Success criteria, sorry. So it's just coming from a dev's perspective who put together a list of success criteria for designers to adhere to, which is quite interesting. But yeah, so we've got that coming up. But that's an every month thing, and it's good stuff. Every year we also do stuff like mark accessibility events. They happen more than once a year. There's a few. There's Global Accessibility Awareness Day, which is this GAD thing, which we've just had. There's Purple Tuesday, there is International Day of Persons with Disabilities. There's a bunch. They're all just good excuses to make a bit of a song and dance. And what these tend to do is kind of move outside of is it like preaching to the choir thing, singing to the choir, something like that, the metaphor. Basically, people that come along to the surgery, the guild, that community grows more slowly, and they tend to be the people that are into it, where this kind of thing opens it up to people beyond that. So it's a nice way to recruit, basically, as much as anything. But yeah, we had lots of fun and chaos and technical problems at the Global Accessibility Awareness Day that we marked that. Was it last week before, something like that? I don't know. Time has been a bit of a weird, amorphous kind of blob recently. But yeah, we did a conference with, I think, we had a panel discussion, we had an accessibility quiz, we had a kind of open Q&A session. We had an open discussion session. We had 4, 5, 6 talks. It was good. It was a good day. We also put on, because things have kind of opened up a little bit since COVID, but we also had like an in-person empathy lab, which we had a bunch of accessibility champions that I mentioned earlier that they kind of got involved in, and they kind of helped people understand what was going on. We had laptops with, some of them had assistive technology like screen readers running, where the people would come and have a try, see how they worked, get a feel for it. We'd have other things where there were workstations set up where people could try out a task, and we'd had visual impairment glasses and maybe some software simulation, impairment simulation things going on. The tiniest glimpse into the barriers that some people face. But still, there was, even with that, and with that important framing as well, people came away with a new perspective. They realised that actually, like, if I did things in this way rather than that way, then the person that experiences a world like I did for that kind of 3-minute period isn't going to face those problems anymore. So it's a good thing to do. But yeah, anyway, that's the empathy labs. There we go. I skipped a slide there because I want to give you a little bit of a sneak preview onto the next slide, so we can jump that one. Workshops and training courses. This is just a kind of a general thing. As on top of the Accessibility Guild, we also have, generally we can go in. I'll go in and talk to anybody. Basically, I'll go in and bend someone's ear about accessibility. We can talk about something very specific, whether it might be, I don't know, document hierarchy or specific markup patterns. Or it might just be an introductory session, just a general, like, this is accessibility, this is why it's important, this is who it's for. And yeah, these are some examples of what might be a problem and how to fix it. So yeah, anything you can do there is good. And again, that doesn't have to come from a perspective of absolute knowledge. We're all learning, and it's something that, you just tell people what you know, the problems you've solved. I mentioned the champions as well in regard to the accessibility empathy labs. The Champions Network's growing. They even have T-shirts now. I'm trying to see if there's anybody with T-shirt on. No champions tonight either. But there are some accessibility champions based out here who now have spanking T-shirts on. But yeah, these people are great. They basically increase my reach, or the reach that I want to have. There's only so far I can stretch. There's only so far my team can stretch. So having that network of people that, we might give them some mentoring as they're doing it and keep them right. These accessibility enthusiasts that kind of want to do something. I managed to get sign off for a specific percentage of their time. That came from someone who I'm mentioning earlier about friends in high places. That's something that came from one person who said, "Oh, this developer on my team, why don't we give them 10% of the time to spend on accessibility?" 10% is like half a day a week, which is quite a chunk. But then I kind of use that as kind of leverage to go to other people and say, "Well, Dan's doing this, so maybe you could do the 10% thing," and it's kind of become a thing now. So they're happy to do that. They get involved in all sorts of stuff, empathy labs, presentations, general helping out. It's good good to have, and also a nice network amongst themselves as people who might be pushing the agenda further. Again, lots of shoulders to cry on if need be. Mainly me crying on their shoulders, but it's a thing. And accessibility hub's important, and this is not really anything to go into any great detail about. This is just somewhere where you can refer people to who say, oh, what's this accessibility thing? Oh, what's that surgery you mentioned? What does that mean? And you can just say, I'll go there, read up about it. And yeah, that sounds a bit dismissive, but it's a nice sort of resource. You can put other things on there. Ours has stuff about accessibility audits, how you might go about getting one, what you need to sort out before you ask for one, so that you're not wasting yours and anyone else's time. Yeah, just a nice little resources thing, pointing to interesting blog posts for frequently asked questions. Yeah, a good thing to have. I'll finish up with those 5 tips that I mentioned. Now comes the dogma. There's no dogma, don't worry. So first of all, be kind. Accessibility is kind of one of those things that kind of might land on someone's desk, virtual desk, whatever it might be. They've been working, grafting hard to deadlines under the cosh and not having a great time all the time. And they've worked hard on things, whether that's from a design perspective, a development perspective. Being kind is an important part of that, I think, because people have, that's their blood, sweat and tears. And for you to just go in and say, no, you've done it all wrong, change it, is not fun from their perspective. It might be fun from my perspective, but it's not fun from their perspective. So yeah, do be kind and be empathetic. People have worked hard. So that's something I try to kind of keep in mind. I mentioned as well being prepared for a fight. There are lots of battles. It's even just things like fixing existing accessibility bugs to integrating accessibility into processes generally. There's going to be a lot of resistance to that. And it's a strange thing. Even though there is legal requirement for it, it's one of those strange areas where people are like, no, I'm not going to do anything about that, I don't think. So yeah, be prepared to have that kind of dismissive kind of reaction in some cases, and push through. It's there are little battles and skirmishes to be had, and yeah, be prepared. Be prepared to learn as well. That's another thing. I'm learning. I've been doing this for a while, and there's a lot. But if you're just starting out in your accessibility journey, there is tons to know, and loads of stuff you don't know. You don't know, and you don't know those things you don't know until you know them, and then you realise you've done everything slightly the wrong way. But do push on. Do the right thing. Progress is definitely better than perfection. And you will find yourself, as I have often found myself, in a position where you might have said something that you kind of later think, actually, maybe that wasn't quite. Yeah, there are. You make mistakes. You make the wrong call sometimes. I'm getting a look from Carla. It doesn't happen very often. Don't worry. It's a but yeah, it's a thing. We all make mistakes. So yeah, don't worry about it. Just push on. Do the right thing. And it'll all be fine in the end. But it is hard, and I get it. Another thing is to be humble as well. This is another thing about the kind of Dunning-Kruger effect, where you think you know everything because you know a little bit, and you don't. And always remember that there's definitely stuff you don't know. Double check things. Make sure you don't make those mistakes. Yeah, be humble and understand that like even if you think one thing based on one particular user testing session, which is good information, that's not necessarily going to apply to every user who might use the keyboard alone or a screen reader or whatever it might be that they've been using to access the digital product you've been testing. So yeah, do be humble, do keep checking, and do question yourself often. I think that's quite healthy. And be patient, I think, is the last one. I think, yeah, just be patient. Change can come very slowly, and a little bit like the kind of the idea of the Hydra. This is what happens at where I work, is that you think it's a great, this product's in great shape, and then another one pops up. It's like, oh shit, another one. Okay, the thing is, it all starts again. But you make new friends along the way. Lots of people get engaged with accessibility, and the world is a slightly better place as a result. And I think that's probably a nice place to wrap up. I did put this on, but I'm not sure I really use Mastodon very much. But do follow me on Mastodon if that's your thing. I don't know. I don't know if people still use Twitter or whatever. I've kind of ditched that. But yeah, do reach out and say hello. Be nice to hear from you. Did you want to go for a break just now? Yeah, that's it. Yeah, cool. Thank you.